Chapter 14 Coordination and Response. Lesson 14.1 Coordination and Response. Don't forget to go back to the objectives to check that you covered everything you need from this lesson. So, stimuli. What are stimuli? The singular stimulus. It is any change in the environment that can be detected by organisms, like anything. When you see something, this means that this thing is a stimulus that you could detect. When you hear something, this means that this is a stimulus that you could detect. When you feel something, this means that it's a stimulus that your sense organs could detect. Or your receptor cells. So what are receptors? These are the cells that can detect the changes in the environment or the stimuli. So, for example, here is the stimulus, and your eye here contains receptor cells that will see this stimulus. So, when the light falls on this object and reflects into your eyes, the receptor cells in your eyes will detect the shape of this thing and then send the impulses, send the electrical information to your brain to process it. If there is an action that should be taken towards this stimulus, here comes the effectors. What are the effectors? These are the parts of the body responsible for the response to the stimulus. For example, you saw a ball and you want to kick this ball. This means that your effector muscles will go for kicking the ball. What if you eat something? When you eat something, now you sensed and smelled the thing that you're eating. So what will happen? The effector glands, in this case, they are the salivary glands, will produce saliva for you to be able to start the digestion of the thing you ate. So effectors can be muscles or glands. Okay? So, what's coordination then? Coordination is ensuring that the actions of the different parts of the body will work together in order to respond quickly. For example, you ate a piece of food. Now the salivary glands as effectors will produce saliva, but you need now the coordination or the help of your whole digestive system in order to digest this piece of food that you ingested. So, coordination is making sure that the whole process, the whole system will work together. The same with other systems and the same with other situations. Like here, when you touch a hot object, you withdraw your hand. So this is coordination between your sensory receptors in the skin and the muscles of your arm. So coordination makes sure that everything will work in a good team and in a healthy way of working together. Coordination is very important, not just for us and inside of our bodies, but also in order to keep us safe. For example, for animals living in the wild, they need to coordinate their muscles with their sense of sight, with their sense of smell, with their sense of hearing, in order to be able to catch food and also to avoid predators for their safety. So let's see the process here. First, the pain receptors in the fingertips in this man's hand will feel the pain and will feel the hot surface. So, electrical impulses will travel very quickly, causing the effector muscles to pull the hand away from the hot surface. So now, this is coordination between different body organs. So, is there only one way to send information throughout the body? Actually, no. We have two ways of sending information between the receptors and the effectors. First, we have nerves, and second, we have hormones. Nerves belong to the nervous system, while hormones belong to the glands of the endocrine system. So, what are nerves? They are a group of neuron axons lying together to make something like an electrical cable that will be able to transmit the nerve impulses. But what about hormones? Hormones, they are chemical signals that will, or chemical substances that will be sent into the blood, and they travel throughout the blood until they reach the target organ. When they reach the target organ, they change how it works or the proteins produced by the cells. So this is how hormones work. But nerves, they work, as I said before, by electrical impulses. So which one will be faster? Of course, nerves. Nerves will be a faster way of communication between receptors and effectors. But what about hormones? Hormones are slower and their effect stays longer as well. Okay? So, now let's take a deeper look into our nervous system. First, our nervous system is divided into CNS or central nervous system and PNS or peripheral nervous system. CNS consists of only the brain and the spinal cord, while PNS or the peripheral nervous system, this consists of every other nerve in our body. Okay, so CNS is the boss. It's the one that takes the decisions. Again, it's the brain and the spinal cord. While here we have the peripheral nervous system. Those are all of the other nerves that bring the information from the receptors or send the answer to the effectors. Peripheral nervous system is further divided into somatic nervous system or autonomic nervous system. From the name autonomic, involuntary, automatic, without your interference. While somatic nervous system, these are the effects that you can control. Okay? And then the autonomic nervous system is divided further into sympathetic nervous system and parasympathetic nervous system. Sympathetic nervous system works when you are aroused, when your body needs to spend energy, when you are in stressful situations. While parasympathetic nervous system, this calms your body and conserves your energy and maintains your energy level to the lowest. Again, our nervous system is divided into two: central nervous system, peripheral nervous system. Central nervous system, brain, spinal cord. Peripheral nervous system, somatic, autonomic. The autonomic is divided into two: sympathetic and parasympathetic. So what's the function of the CNS? It is responsible for the coordination of the electrical impulses traveling through the whole nervous system. As I said before, this is the boss, the brain and the spinal cord. While the PNS, these are all the nerves outside the brain and the spinal cord, which includes your sense organs like your eye and the part of your ear that receives the impulses, for example. So let's take a look at this example. So the eyes as receptors or as sensory organs, they see the ball. So the light receptors in the retina of the eye will detect the presence of the ball. And then those receptor cells will send this impulse, the information, through electrical impulses through the sensory neurons. The sensory neurons will reach the CNS, specifically the brain, to take a decision. What should I do with the ball in front of me? So now the brain will take a decision to kick the ball and send this decision through motor neurons. So motor neurons are responsible for taking the impulse that carries the information from the CNS to the effector cells. So now the impulse traveled through the motor neurons to the leg muscles, which are in this case the effectors, okay, which now will be responsible for kicking the ball. So this is how the whole process works. What's a neuron then? A neuron, it's a nerve cell. There are three types of neurons. We have motor neurons, relay neurons, and then finally sensory neurons. Let's take a deeper look into each one of them. The motor neurons, this is the neuron that's responsible for conducting electrical impulses from the CNS to the effectors, which are again muscles or glands or any structure responsible for the action that's taken. Okay, so what are the components of this motor neuron? First, it is made of the cell body. So the cell body contains the cell membrane, the nucleus, the cytoplasm, the ribosomes, the dendrites, and the mitochondria. What are dendrites? These are the dendrites here. So dendrites, these are short fibers of cytoplasm that pick up the electrical signals from other neurons. So another neuron will meet with this neuron and the electrical impulses will be picked from the dendrites, which means that the direction of impulse will always move from the dendrites to the nerve ending through the axon. So this is always the direction of the impulse. So what's the axon? It is this long fiber of cytoplasm that extends from the cell body and it delivers nerve impulses. Again, what's a nerve impulse? It is an electrical signal that passes rapidly along the axon. It passes very quickly through the axon. So what's the myelin layer or the myelin sheath? The myelin layer is this layer around the axon. What is it? It's made of protein and fat. Why? As the function of the fat in previous lessons, it's for insulation. So it insulates the nerve axon from any surrounding tissue, which makes the impulses much faster. So if you look at a myelinated axon, you will see that the impulse will move as fast as 100 meters per 1 second, while if the fiber is without the myelin, it carries the impulse at about only 5 meters per second speed. So can you see the difference? Okay, now the sensory neuron. It is the type of neuron that will transmit the electrical impulses from the receptors, like the eyes in the previous example, to the CNS or the central nervous system. Can you see the difference or the change in the shape? Here the cell body is in the middle. It's not attached to the dendrites. The dendrites are on the other edge of the axon. So you have dendrites, axon, and then cell body, and then more axon. Okay, so and then finally the axon terminal, of course. So the direction of the nerve impulse here will also always go from the dendrites till the terminal. Now the relay neurons, they almost don't have an axon. They only consist of the cell body, dendrites, and the endings. So where can I find the relay neuron? Actually, they are inside the central nervous system. Why? Because they connect the sensory to the motor neurons. So here, look at this. You have the receptor cells that will send the impulse through the sensory neuron. Then from the sensory neuron, the impulse will reach the relay neuron where the decision will be taken. And then now the answer or what I'm gonna do will be sent through the motor neuron to the effector organ, either muscle or glands. Now the reflex action. What's the reflex action? It is the way of automatically and rapidly integrating the coordination stimuli in order to work very efficiently and very strongly with the response of the effector. So I am integrating or coordinating again the receptor with the effector in a faster way, even faster than thinking. So a reflex arc is a series of neurons, sensory, relay, and motor that transmit electrical impulses from a receptor to an effector. So this works very rapidly. So reflex actions are helpful. Why? Because the information is passed from the receptor to the effector very quickly. Like when you get pricked with a needle, you don't think, you just pull or withdraw your hand. No time is wasted in thinking. So the organ responsible this time is only the spinal cord. You don't process what's happening. There is a specific action to the specific stimulus without thinking. So it's automatic and involuntary. They coordinate our actions even when you receive more than one stimulus at the same time. So you can be running from a dog and you still can see the car coming and you can avoid it. Why? Because you can receive and process many stimuli at the same time due to the reflex arc. You're not thinking. Each stimulus has its own response ready already. Okay? They link specific stimuli to specific response. As I said previously, there is a specific code for each stimulus. So when your body or when your receptors receive this specific stimulus, there is a quick and ready answer for it. So what are examples of the reflex actions? See the knee jerking here? When you hit the knee, your leg will jerk automatically because this is an involuntary reflex action that happens by the reflex arc. When you receive this stimulus, the spinal cord will send a quick answer to the motor nerves that will accordingly reach the effector muscles of the leg to do this function or to do this action, so that your leg will move suddenly and will move without your control. Also the withdrawal. For example, here, when you withdraw your hand or a part of your body when it gets hurt, this is called withdrawal. Also, it is a reflex action without thinking, very quick. Iris reflection. Can you see here? This colored part is called the iris. Okay, so when the iris contracts, this means that the part in the middle, we will know its name, it's going to widen. Why? This happens in dim light. When there is dim light and you need to collect as much light as you can in order to see, your iris is going to contract to allow more space for light to enter your eye. But what if the light is very strong and there is a chance that your retina might be damaged because of this very bright light? It's going to relax to narrow the entrance of light inside your eye in order to protect your retina. So this is another reflex action called the iris. So now, what's a synapse? It is the junction of two neurons. So what's the synaptic gap? It is the gap between the two neurons. So there is a synapse that is the junction of the two neurons together, where two neurons are going to meet. What's the synaptic gap? It is the gap, the very tiny and small gap between two neurons. So how do electrical impulses or how do nerve impulses travel through the synapse? This is a gap. So what will happen? When the impulse arrives at the end of the presynaptic neuron. Presynaptic neuron means this is the neuron before the synaptic gap. Now, here is the nerve impulse. When it reaches the end of the presynaptic neuron, you can see those vesicles are formed. What are these? These are the vesicles that contain the neurotransmitters. They are simply some chemicals. So the neurotransmitter vesicles will touch or will reach the end of the neuron. And then the vesicle will pop and the neurotransmitter will be released into the synaptic gap, as you can see. After they are released, they will attach to receptors on the postsynaptic neuron. Post means after. So now the neurotransmitters are attached to the postsynaptic neuron, which will trigger a nerve impulse that will travel forward. What happens to the neurotransmitters then? The neurotransmitters are either they go back into the presynaptic neuron again and get reused, or they are destroyed and new ones are made. Let's look at this question. What does it say? Label the diagram below with the following key parts of a reflex arc: receptor, spinal cord, motor neuron, sensory neuron, relay neuron, synapse, and effector. So first we will label the parts of the diagram. Here, as you can see, what is this? This is the receptor. How did I know? Because these are the sensory neurons. Can you see the cell body coming out? Not the head here or the cell body here. It is in the middle. So this is sensory neuron. And then this is the relay neuron. And then this is the motor neuron. And this is the effector. Where are the synapses? Here you go. Here's one. And here's the other one. As we said before, the synapse is where two neurons meet. So now let's organize the steps of the reflex arc below into the correct order by numbers from 1 to 8. So here he's asking you about both the traveling of the nerve impulse and also the reflex arc. Please, if he's asking about only one of them, do not confuse them with each other. Remember, the reflex arc, this is how the reflex action happens, while the nerve impulse transmission is the process that includes the synaptic gap, the postsynaptic neuron, and the presynaptic neuron. Okay, let's take a look at the question that combines both. Here we go. This is the correct arrangement. First, the receptor is stimulated, and then the electrical impulse will travel along the sensory neuron. Where is it going? To the CNS. Now, at the synapse between the sensory and the relay neuron, what will happen? A chemical is released, which is the neurotransmitters, and it diffuses across the synapse. What will happen when the neurotransmitters touch the receptors of the relay neuron? This triggers an electrical impulse in the relay neuron, and then when the impulse reaches the next synapse, the chemical is released again, which travels across the synapse. What will happen afterwards? This will trigger the electrical impulse in the motor neuron, and after this, the impulse reaches the effector, which is stimulated to respond. Finally, the effector will respond with the correct response, like moving a muscle or producing a hormone or producing an enzyme from a gland. Are we all following up till here? Let's answer some other questions from the classified. So, a student stood on a sharp pin, causing a nerve impulse to travel along the reflex arc in her nervous system. Use words from the list to complete the boxes. Each word may be used once, more than once, or not at all. This is very important to read because sometimes when you see that you used a word already, you think that it shouldn't be used another time. And actually it can be used. So you might lose marks because of this. So please make sure that you read the question carefully. So the sharp pin in this scenario is going to be our, yes, stimulus. What about the sensory cell? This will be the receptor. Then the impulse will travel through the sensory neuron to where? To the relay neuron. And then the motor or the effector neuron will receive the answer from the relay neuron. and it will send this impulse to the muscles in the leg. What are these? The effectors. And then the muscles will contract. What is this? This is the response. And let's look at another question, but this time from paper 1. The diagram shows a neuron carrying an impulse. As we agreed before, the direction of impulse will always start from the dendrites. He's asking you two parts in this question. Which row describes the type of neuron and the direction of the impulse? So what's the type of neuron here? From the shape, it is a motor neuron. What's the direction of the impulse? If it's a motor neuron, this means that it will carry the impulse from the CNS, from the central nervous system, to the effector. So it's carrying the impulse away from the spinal cord. And this makes the correct answer B. A boy accidentally touches a very hot object and immediately takes his hand away. In this reflex action, what's the effector? The effector is a muscle or a gland. So the effector is the muscle in his arm. Why? Because this is a withdrawal reflex action. He touched a very hot object, so he withdrew the arm immediately, which is a reflex action. Happens through the reflex arc. Thank you, and I hope this video helps you study.